All right, to jump right into this would be day 4, and today we'll go over plyometrics. So I'll just go over my overview and my perspective on this topic, and then hopefully, it could be some good information for you to take away. But as we go down the road, like each of these concepts that I talk about, I'll go more in detail just naturally because there's a ton of layers, a ton of nuance to begin with. But this is like just bare basic um, overlay, whatever you want to call it. So the two forms of plyometrics that I use, or the way I break them down, is the first is extensive plyometrics and the second is intensive plyometrics. Okay, starting off with extensive, think about jump roping for 1, 2 to 3 minutes, right? Think lower intensity, longer duration, or higher duration, right? So this is why I'll have guys or gals doing light skipping, light hopping in place for 1, 2 to 3 minutes. And then this is also an easy way to incorporate some rhythm with it, especially if it's skipping work for 3 minutes. That's already rhythm you're introducing just to begin the session, right? But the most important thing about extensive plyometrics is the same reason that in extreme isometrics that I said that for me that's the foundation for the correct muscular engagements that we want, or building the capacity to do so in the positions that we need in sports. This is the way of laying the foundation for the capacity of being able to handle higher intensity plyometrics, right? That's why we'll go low intensity skips, and we do these damn near every day, if not 4 or 5 days a week. And even if I don't train them, this is just homework of like, or when you're home, just do light skips for 2 3 minutes, just because we're trying to develop the foot and ankle complex. And the reason for that is because, understand this, once your foot hits the ground, there is some chain reaction going back up. So from your foot hits, and now everything else up the chain has to react, right? But also understand this too. If that foot hits and it can't handle the amount of force being applied to it, something up the chain will be compensated, or it will have to make up for it, right? Especially if there's bleeding energy, if there's collapse, or if there's whatever. That's just putting other things in harm's way because the foot can't handle or isn't capable of, or is not built up enough to handle what it's being asked to do, right? So extensive plyometrics is the bare minimum where we start, because this is a way that we can get ground contacts, and we can get a lot of ground contacts because it's longer duration, and most importantly, it can keep you safe before you get into more intensive work. Because if you go straight into high intensity jumps, you're leaving a lot of room for not error, but you could have done more preparation beforehand, by handling this on the back end, you know what I mean? And now that we get into the intensive plyometrics, this is where it's your high intensity jumps and sprints too, right? Sprints and jumps, this is as intense and as potent of a stimulus you could ever put on your body, right? Because think about this, even if you're doing a max effort squat, you still have a higher chance of pulling your hamstring during a sprint than on that squat, right? There's nothing more intense than actual sprinting or high intensity jumping. There just isn't, right? So the reason for, or the way I view these intensive plyometrics is, this is how you teach an athlete how to express force through the ground, right? And when I mean express force, I don't mean to just slam that foot or punch the foot through the ground. You want them to almost, the main coaching point I use is, think about trying to bounce off the ground. Think about a trampoline effect. Think about a slingshot effect. Think about how the less effort you put into it, the more smooth it should feel. And at the same time, you're producing a lot of force. And that doesn't really make sense. But if you think about this, right? Why do professional Olympic sprinters, why is their main coaching point stay relaxed? Relax. Even if you're neck and neck with somebody, or even if you're behind somebody, relax. Because by trying to force, you actually take away from the amount of force you're trying to apply. Like, that sounds like a paradox in a way, and it kind of is, right? But the best way I've ever heard this explained was that speed is a byproduct of grace, right? And now I can add that high force is a byproduct of grace, right? It should feel easy, because smooth is fast. That's the main takeaway really from this, is like, once you get into higher intensity work, like, you have to be very careful, because now now the intensity is high, and now the details have to match that too. You get what I'm saying? And so the final point with plyometrics now is, I like to try to make it real to the athlete, especially if it's a change of direction sport. Like track and field, it's all pre-planned. Like, they know exactly what they're going to do. So what do? They have to master, and they have to nitpick the mechanics, you know what I mean, of knee flexion, hip extension, ground contacts. They get into more spinal edge and stuff. That's a whole different topic. But the same way that in the extreme isometrics, I said that it has to feel real to the athlete, and the way you do that is you get them in position, you get them to build up the tension, and now you want them to pair that with the movement. The same thing I do here, where we'll do a plyometric, like a single leg hop to a single leg land, and then we could use that into a cut. We could use that into something that they're going to use into their sport. I'll take a movement that they'll do in sport, and I'll layer that on top of a plyometric, just so their body understands how to, one, use the ground, two, this gets into that how to relax, how to be more, how to not force movements, and then three, how to make it more applicable to their sport. That's all. Tomorrow will be deceleration.